So, leaked audio recordings have just surfaced showing Donald Trump admitting on tape that he knew classified documents in his possession were not declassified, directly contradicting every defense his legal team has presented for months. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. We're talking about recordings where Trump himself acknowledges showing classified material to people without security clearances and admits he can't declassify them anymore because he's no longer president. This isn't speculation from anonymous sources or partisan interpretation. This is Trump's own voice on tape saying the exact opposite of what his lawyers have been arguing in court. And here's the kicker. Warren Buffett, who's stayed silent on political controversies for years, just broke his silence with a statement that's sending shockwaves through both Wall Street and Washington. This isn't just about classified documents anymore. We're talking about potential obstruction charges, witness tampering allegations, and a complete collapse of Trump's legal defense strategy. And trust me, what comes next could reshape the entire 2024 presidential race. Let me fill you in on what's been happening. So, Donald Trump has been facing federal charges since June 2023 over his handling of classified documents after leaving the White House. Special counsel Jack Smith filed an indictment alleging Trump willfully retained national defense information and obstructed justice by refusing to return hundreds of classified documents stored at Mar-a-Lago. From the get-go, Trump's defense strategy has been crystal clear. He claims he declassified everything before leaving office, that he had absolute authority to take whatever documents he wanted, and that this entire prosecution is nothing but a political witch hunt. His legal team, led by various attorneys over the months, has hammered this narrative in every court filing, every press conference, and every Truth Social post. Trump himself has repeated it at rallies, insisting he did nothing wrong because presidents have total declassification power. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now 8 months into this federal prosecution. Trump's arraignment happened, his legal team has filed motion after motion trying to get the case dismissed, and the trial date keeps getting pushed around. Meanwhile, additional evidence keeps emerging that contradicts his core defense. Security footage from Mar-a-Lago shows boxes being moved around. Former aides are cooperating with prosecutors, and Trump's own statements in interviews and on social media keep creating new problems for his lawyers. This mess is unfolding because Trump's legal team and the Department of Justice are at a complete standstill over whether a former president can simply declare documents declassified without following any official process. And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Trump's own attorneys, who have to defend statements that keep getting contradicted by new evidence. He's supposed to be mounting a credible legal defense. But here's the kicker. Trump isn't interested in a traditional legal strategy. He wants total vindication, complete dismissal of all charges, and public acknowledgement that he was persecuted. He's demanding his lawyers fight this case in the court of public opinion as much as in actual courtrooms. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. Criminal defendants often maintain innocence, and everyone deserves a vigorous defense. But when your own recorded words contradict your legal strategy, that creates a nearly impossible situation for any defense team. Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around October 28th revealed just how devastating these leaked recordings actually are. According to Politico's detailed analysis, the audio was recorded during a meeting at Trump's Bedminster Golf Club in July 2021, just months after he left office. Trump is heard discussing a classified Pentagon document about potential military action against Iran. He's showing this document to people who don't have security clearances, including writers working on Mark Meadows' memoir and his own communications staff. And this is where it gets absolutely wild. Trump says on the recording, "As president, I could have declassified it, but now I can't, you know?" Talk about strong words. Let me repeat that because it's crucial. Trump admits on tape that he did not declassify this document while president, that he knows he cannot declassify it now, and that he's showing it to people anyway. The recording then captures rustling papers and Trump saying, "This is secret information. Look at this. This isn't a case of unclear audio or ambiguous statements. This is Trump, in his own voice, admitting he possesses classified material that he knows he cannot legally share." Essentially, Trump was calling his own legal defense a lie for everyone who would listen to this tape. And this wasn't a private conversation. Trump invited multiple people to this meeting, including individuals who prosecutors now believe can testify about exactly what Trump showed them and what he said. This announcement sent shockwaves through Trump's legal team because it raised all sorts of questions. If Trump, the defendant himself, could admit on tape that he didn't declassify documents and knew he couldn't share them, what did that mean for everyone else scrambling to defend his actions? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this pattern. Trump's relationship with legal accountability really only extends to what benefits him in the moment. Whenever someone stops being useful or evidence emerges that contradicts his narrative, he's quick to turn on them or create new explanations. We've spotted this pattern time and time again. Just think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions right after Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. Sessions had been one of Trump's earliest and most loyal supporters, the first senator to endorse him in 2016. But the moment Sessions followed Department of Justice ethics rules and recused himself, Trump began publicly humiliating him. He called Sessions weak, questioned his loyalty, and eventually forced him out as Attorney General. Sessions' crime wasn't disloyalty to Trump personally. It was following proper legal protocols that Trump found inconvenient. Then there was Bill Barr. Barr served as Trump's Attorney General and was widely seen as one of his most effective defenders. Barr gave Trump cover on the Mueller report, took aggressive stances on executive power, and generally aligned himself with Trump's agenda. But when Barr stated publicly that the Department of Justice found no evidence of widespread election fraud in 2020, Trump turned on him immediately. Suddenly, Barr was weak, corrupt, and part of the swamp. Within weeks, Barr was out, and Trump was attacking him in public statements. And let's not forget how he distanced himself from Mike Pence when Pence refused to block the certification of electoral votes on January 6th. Pence had been unfailingly loyal for 4 years, defending Trump through every controversy. But when Pence followed his constitutional duty and certified the election results, Trump's supporters at the Capitol were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," and Trump did nothing to protect him. In fact, Trump criticized Pence for lacking courage, essentially blaming him for not illegally overturning the election. Even Kevin McCarthy faced a similar fate when McCarthy initially criticized Trump's actions on January 6th. McCarthy said on the House floor that Trump bore responsibility for the violence. Within days, Trump's pressure and McCarthy's own political calculations led McCarthy to Mar-a-Lago to make amends. But Trump hasn't forgotten. He's held that brief moment of independence over McCarthy ever since, extracting political concessions and keeping McCarthy constantly scrambling to prove his loyalty. Now, it looks like Trump's legal team is in the hot seat. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend Trump every single day, but the moment evidence emerges that contradicts the narrative, or you suggest following legal protocols, he'll toss you aside without a second thought, or create a new story that leaves you exposed. So, what did Trump's legal team do to end up in this impossible position? Well, it all boils down to Trump's insistence that he could declassify anything he wanted without any formal process. The impasse happened because the Department of Justice argued that declassification requires documented procedures and that simply taking classified documents doesn't make them declassified, while Trump's attorneys were trying to argue that Trump had absolute declassification authority and exercised it mentally or through actions rather than formal documentation. Ultimately, the case just moved forward since no one was willing to budge on these fundamental questions. As the defendant, Trump decided to take an aggressive stance. He attacked the prosecution as politically motivated and refused to simply return the documents when first requested. His approach seemed to be just fighting everything on all fronts, treating legal strategy as an extension of political combat. At first, this approach had some logic to it. Trump appreciates boldness and the notion of never backing down. His base responds to fighters who challenge the system rather than those who cooperate with investigations. But here's where things started to go wrong. As the case dragged into its 8th month, some serious issues started cropping up. Additional evidence kept emerging, more witnesses started cooperating, and the legal calendar was moving toward actual trial dates. While Trump's team were steadfast and holding their ground predictably, the judicial system began to shift toward concrete proceedings. Legal experts across the political spectrum started questioning whether Trump's declassification defense had any merit. According to a CBS News analysis from October 15th, Former prosecutors noted that even conservative legal scholars were expressing skepticism about Trump's core arguments. This was the moment Trump's legal team began to sweat a little. You see, criminal defense attorneys value viable legal theories, favorable precedent, and overall courtroom credibility. They don't want to be tied to a defense strategy that's contradicted by their own clients' recorded statements. That's definitely not the outcome any lawyer seeks. And then Trump went ahead and made statements that, according to legal experts, were serious missteps for any criminal defendant. Trump started giving interviews where he discussed the case in detail. He posted extensively on Truth Social about the documents. He even provided statements to friendly media outlets describing what he did with classified material. According to MSNBC's legal analyst Andrew Weissman, a former federal prosecutor, Trump was essentially creating evidence against himself with every public statement. Trump's lawyers reportedly begged him to stop talking about the case, but Trump refused. In his mind, public relations and political messaging are more important than legal strategy. Any lawyer who dares to suggest he stay quiet or admit wrongdoing is instantly labeled disloyal. But then, when these audio recordings surfaced, Trump's legal team absolutely lost it. In the leaked audio, Trump admits everything his lawyers have been denying in court filings. The recordings proved that Trump knew the documents were classified, knew he hadn't declassified them, and knew he shouldn't be showing them to unauthorized people. According to Politico's October 28th report, Trump's legal team held emergency meetings to strategize how to handle this bombshell. Some attorneys reportedly discussed whether they needed to withdraw from the case entirely, since Trump's own words contradicted the defense they'd been presenting. Now, this left Trump's legal team in a tight spot. On one side, they really need Trump to follow their legal advice and stop making public statements that undermine the defense strategy. Any competent legal team will tell you that when your client admits guilt on tape, your options become severely limited. On the flip side, they actually have to work with Trump as a client. That means dealing with someone who views legal proceedings as political theater, who values public perception over courtroom strategy, and who demands absolute loyalty while frequently contradicting his own lawyers. The tricky part is all of that requires some level of client cooperation and honest communication between attorney and client. So Trump's lawyers are caught in a bind. They can either keep trying to defend Trump using arguments his own recordings contradict, which means filing motions and making court arguments that prosecutors can refute with Trump's own voice, and that only makes their case weaker and damages their own professional credibility. Or they can acknowledge that the recordings severely undermine the defense and explore plea negotiations or different legal strategies, but that'll definitely make Trump turn against them and likely lead to their removal from the case. It's a tough situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for legal teams who represent him. He demands complete loyalty and wants them to fight without compromise, but then he undermines their work with his own statements. He's not shy about tossing them under the bus whenever his legal troubles deepen. This whole scenario is causing major stress within Trump's broader legal and political circle. If Trump's own recorded admissions have destroyed his primary legal defense, and his attorneys can't even trust what their client will say publicly, every advisor and ally is left wondering if their own credibility is the next casualty. Those moderate Republicans who are trying to balance supporting Trump politically while maintaining some institutional credibility are now worried sick about being the next ones to get tossed aside. Their constituents include voters who care about national security and rule of law. Defending a candidate who admits on tape to mishandling classified information creates serious electoral vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, the hardcore Trump supporters believe his legal team isn't aggressive enough and that they're too worried about legal niceties instead of fighting the deep state. Things became even more intense when Pat Cipollone, Trump's former White House counsel, agreed to provide testimony to the special counsel. Cipollone had been one of Trump's most effective legal defenders inside the White House, but he also had a reputation for trying to keep Trump within legal boundaries. He had been pushing for Trump to return the classified documents when initially requested and warned against the confrontational approach. When someone as aligned with legal conservatism as Cipollone starts cooperating with prosecutors, you know you're in a world of hurt. Then came the institutional response that really escalated everything. The Department of Justice decided to pursue additional charges. On November 3rd, Special Counsel Jack Smith filed a superseding indictment, adding new counts based on evidence that Trump's team had tried to delete security camera footage at Mar-a-Lago and that Trump had personally directed employees to move boxes of documents to hide them from investigators. According to CNN's reporting, Smith's team obtained testimony from multiple Trump employees who described specific instructions they received to conceal documents from Trump's own attorneys and from federal investigators. Smith pointed out that obstruction of justice doesn't just mean refusing to return documents. It includes deliberately concealing evidence and lying to investigators about what you possess. The legal standard for obstruction requires proof that the defendant acted corruptly to impede an official investigation. When you have audio recordings of the defendant admitting he has classified information, combined with security footage showing boxes being moved right before investigators arrive, combined with testimony from employees who say they were told to hide materials, that creates an overwhelming obstruction case. The legal process moved pretty quickly, and prosecutors recognized the urgency. After all, every day that Trump's defense team maintains arguments contradicted by Trump's own recorded statements means another day of legal proceedings built on a foundation that's already collapsed. And let me tell you, legal experts didn't hold back with their analysis. It was a major blow for Trump's defense. Former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti stated on MSNBC that Trump's recorded admissions were the single most devastating piece of evidence he'd seen in the case. That's legal speak for saying you've got no solid ground to stand on here. There's no reasonable legal argument that works when your own voice is on tape admitting you knew the documents were classified and that you were showing them to unauthorized people. You've completely undermined any defense strategy based on declassification claims. Legal experts are noting that we haven't seen a presidential document case this clear-cut since Nixon and the Watergate tapes. Andrew McCarthy, a conservative legal analyst and former federal prosecutor, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that if prosecutors can authenticate these recordings and get them admitted as evidence at trial, it will be nearly impossible to defend against these charges. Just think about that for a moment. This is coming from someone who generally supports Republican positions and has been skeptical of other Trump investigations. And this is coming from a conservative voice on Fox News, not a liberal commentator on MSNBC. Barbara McQuaid, a former U.S. attorney and current law professor, mentioned that Trump's statements on the recordings meet every element required for an Espionage Act violation. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like devastating evidence and nearly impossible to defend, that's the moment to really pay attention. But here's where Warren Buffett enters the picture in a way nobody expected. Buffett has famously avoided commenting on political controversies throughout his career. The Oracle of Omaha has built his reputation on long-term thinking, institutional stability, and staying above partisan fray. He's criticized policies he disagrees with, but he's never directly attacked individual politicians or inserted himself into criminal proceedings. That changed on November 5th when Buffett released a statement through Berkshire Hathaway that sent shockwaves through both financial and political circles. According to the Wall Street Journal's report from November 6th, Buffett stated, "The casual treatment of classified national security information represents a fundamental breach of the trust Americans place in their leaders. When someone with access to our nation's most sensitive secrets admits on tape that they're sharing this information with unauthorized individuals, that's not a political issue. That's a security crisis that threatens American lives and interests." The statement continued, "Business leaders and investors need stable, trustworthy institutions. The rule of law must apply equally to everyone, regardless of political position. When that principle erodes, everything else we've built becomes vulnerable." This wasn't some generic statement about democratic values. This was Buffett specifically addressing Trump's case and essentially saying Trump's actions threaten the institutional foundation that makes American capitalism and democracy function. For Buffett to break his usual silence and make this statement represents something significant. Buffett's credibility spans partisan lines. He's not seen as a political operative. He's viewed as someone who thinks long-term about American interests. When he says something threatens institutional stability, markets listen, and voters, particularly older voters who respect Buffett's track record, pay attention. The implications of Buffett's statement go beyond just one more critic joining the pile. According to Bloomberg's analysis from November 7th, Buffett's statement was seen as a signal to other business leaders and institutional figures that remaining silent might no longer be tenable. Within 48 hours of Buffett's statement, several other major business figures made similar comments. Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase stated that respect for classified information and legal processes is essential for national security. Former defense secretaries from both parties issued a joint statement emphasizing the serious nature of mishandling defense documents. So, let's break down what this political and legal earthquake could mean, because it's not just a captivating courtroom drama. It has serious consequences for how our democratic and legal systems operate. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant backlash due to multiple indictments across different jurisdictions, and his approval ratings among independent voters are taking a hit. Republican candidates in competitive districts are getting anxious about the 2024 elections, which is definitely adding to the tension. Now, Trump's core legal defense has been destroyed by his own recorded words, and America's most respected investor has publicly stated this represents a threat to institutional stability. And honestly, that's not the best look for someone trying to return to the presidency. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for Buffett as someone who's consistently demonstrated sound judgment over decades, even if they don't always agree with his politics. When Buffett says something threatens American interests, that carries weight beyond typical political commentary. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the law and does not hold classified information security or judicial processes in high regard, and they'll have Trump's own recorded admissions backing up those claims. This is going to be Exhibit A in proving that Trump cannot be trusted with national security responsibilities. You can expect to see clips of these audio recordings popping up in Democratic campaign ads, congressional hearings, and presidential debates throughout 2024. Now let's touch on what this means for the Republican Party itself. Party leadership has been working hard to keep Trump's legal troubles from dominating the entire political landscape, wanting to focus on policy issues and Biden's vulnerabilities. But by having these recordings surface, combined with Buffett's unprecedented statement, they've waded right into a situation that's impossible to ignore. Trump and his supporters are now poised to attack anyone who suggests these charges have merit, implying disloyalty and questioning their Republican credentials, which complicates things for the party's image as supporting law enforcement and national security. Yet many Republicans probably feel they have no other choice. If they stay silent while Trump admits on tape to mishandling classified defense documents, their credibility on national security would take an even bigger hit. Republican senators and representatives who serve on intelligence committees or who represent districts with significant military populations face particular pressure. How do you defend classified information protocols in general while defending a candidate who admits on tape to violating those same protocols? This situation shines a massive spotlight on whether former presidents can simply ignore security classifications and legal processes. At the heart of the issue is whether Trump can just claim declassification authority without following any documented procedures whenever he feels like it. If he gets his way on that, it could totally change how presidential records and classified information systems operate. For 250 years in American democracy, the principle has been that classified information exists to protect national security. Presidents have broad declassification authority, but that authority has always come with processes, documentation, and consultation with intelligence agencies about what can safely be released. The system exists because improper disclosure of classified information can get intelligence sources killed, reveal military capabilities to adversaries, and damage relationships with allied nations who share sensitive information with us. These aren't hypothetical concerns. According to national security experts quoted in the New York Times, the specific documents Trump is heard discussing on the recordings relate to military planning that, if disclosed to adversaries, could compromise American strategic capabilities. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control over information and resents being told there are things he cannot do. If these recordings are admitted as evidence and Trump is convicted despite them, that's a significant boost to the precedent that former presidents can ignore classification systems, and it opens the door for future leaders to misuse classified information for personal or political purposes. So, the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump and his current legal team. It's about shaping the structure of presidential accountability and national security protocols for many years to come. Each time a president or former president brushes aside security norms, breaks classification laws, or attacks the judicial process, it weakens our security infrastructure and democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be completely unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump can admit on tape to showing classified defense documents to unauthorized people and faces no consequences, what's to stop the next president from doing the same? If he can claim mental declassification without any documentation or process, what's to prevent another leader from taking home whatever classified materials they want? These actions don't just disappear when Trump leaves the scene, they become precedents that weaken the entire system. And that's pretty dangerous. National security relies on those classification norms and processes, assuming that people with access to sensitive information will follow the rules, even when it's inconvenient. When those norms crumble, our ability to protect genuinely sensitive information starts to falter. Looking ahead to the 2024 elections, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still 11 months out from those elections, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling the justice system over his own recorded admissions, getting convicted, and facing accountability, that spells trouble for his campaign and for Republicans trying to defend him. Voters usually don't reward chaos and criminal convictions. They want stability and trustworthy leadership. Right now, Trump isn't offering either of those. According to a YouGov poll conducted November 8, 10, Trump's favorability among independent voters dropped 7 points after the audio recordings became public. Even among Republicans, 38% said the recordings made them less likely to support Trump in the primary, though 62% said it made no difference or they didn't believe the recordings were genuine. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring respect for rule of law and national security. After years of chaos under Trump, there are folks who believe that if you vote for them, the presidency will actually be about governing again, not constant legal battles. They're promising no more constant constitutional crises or fights with the justice system, just normal democratic processes. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some Republicans who are exhausted by the Trump drama. So, here's the deal. Trump's own voice has been caught on tape admitting he possessed classified documents he knew he hadn't declassified and that he was showing them to people without security clearances. This isn't just a legal embarrassment or political problem. It's a fundamental question about whether anyone, including former presidents, is truly accountable under American law. If these recordings lead to conviction and Trump faces actual consequences, then we're reaffirming that the rule of law still functions.